So, in the early 80s, you were either Team Spectrum, Team Commodore, or Team Amstrad. Now, my allegiance to the latter aside, it is in fact indisputable that Monica Rambeau, aka the Spectrum we visit with today, was named after the little microcomputer that could. My name is Benji. Clearly I took the red pill this morning, and this is the review of the Spectrum Not So Hero Pack, found in the latest big box adventure, The Mad Titan's Shadow. As ever, we promise critique of the highest order to this little character's signature 15, obligation and Nemesis deck. Let's do this. How refreshing it is to see a superhero fully understand the concept of an alter ego. No one would have a Scooby that mean lady going full torso head kick on a training dummy also moonlights as an energy-toting badass. Mechanically speaking, Ms. Rambeau is all about the form changing. Not quite in the same way that Ant-Man and Wasp forced FFG to mix up their printing press, but with 3 separate forms to change into when she flips to hero form. Quite honestly, this alter ego on its own is about as uninspiring as it gets, but that's because all the action is elsewhere. So before we sidestep to that, let's just agree that we've seen 3 rec, Big Hand 6 and a HP of 11 before, and say thank you and goodbye, middle of the road. Oh, hello hero side, that's more like, or not. A 111 basic power stat line and a hand size of 5. Clearly we need to be taking a look-see at these energy forms because we need a shot of excitement right now. Quick recap though, energy forms face down in alter ego and pick a new one when you flip to hero. Roger that. We have 3 forms to choose from then, the attack buffing Gamma, the thwartastic Photon, and the good luck with that Poindexter Pulsar. A blanket +2 across the chosen basic power means when it matters she is actually rocking a 3-1-1 basic power stat line in any order you see fit. And even without looking at what else she has to offer, I think I'm more than happy with that variable arrangement. Having 3 in any basic power can be a difference maker, that's for sure. It also goes without mentioning the little scoop of ice cream you get with every energy flip. Do not underestimate 1 measly damage, especially when you've done it at least a handful of times in a game. The almost exact same story can be said of removing a threat from a scheme, and to be quite honest, I don't mind a little bit of spot healing too. And it's that last one, Pulsar, which I would normally turn my nose up at. Who wants to be defending all the time? Well, don't forget it's not always up to your basic powers to be the primary damage dealer. So I do like the potential here for these different forms to either go all in on one direction or to cover multiple bases. Let's see how the signature 15 then interacts with all this form-changing chicanery. Up first is signature ally Blue Marvel, with a highly respectable 2-2 and 3 HP stat line. You've once again got a tool at your disposal that is equally good at thwarting and punching face. Not only that, you get a sneaky free form change in there too. There is, much like Ant-Man and Mosp, many workarounds to ensure that you can change your energy forms more than once a turn. You see, it's all in the sequencing. Sometimes this will be in hand and you'll just flip to a form you don't intend to stay in, to get the one-time effect and then slap Blue Marvel down to get into the form you always wanted. You can even spend the day in Attack Town and change into some defensive clothes for bedtime. I think I'll call you Synergy Man. 2 copies of I've Got Lightning Coming Out of My Eyes, aka Energy Duplication, is the obligatory Give Me Resources card. And to be honest, I've seen better. Even in the same big box, Adam Warlock's Karmic Staff is superior. But still, this is also not conditional, and I think just as importantly, there are 2 copies of it. meaning with both of these bad boys you're going to have some serious economy. Still, in the grand scheme of things, by virtue of comparison, this is a fine, if not excellent variation on this theme. Cards 7, 8 and 9 are all called Gamma Blast, and Gamma Blast is good. Either 8 damage if you're not already in Gamma form, or 7 plus, let's hope there's a minion on board overkill, for 3 Spondulics is a fair trade. A more than fair trade. In fact, I think we're getting the better end of the deal. Again, it's all about the sequencing, and that's one of the things I love most about Marvel Champions, that this card makes me happy all across the board. Another 3 of is Photon Speed, the threat removal equivalent of Gamma Blast. And at the risk of repeating myself, I say the same thing as I did in the Adam Warlock review. These threat removal sister and brother cards are just always valued that little bit lower. They're still good in a vacuum, comparably so even, but they're not used quite as much. That is the way of things. Also, a shout out to arguably the most incidental ruling on a card ever made. If you are already in photon energy form, ignore the crisis icon for this thwart. Thanks mate, cheers. I'll see you later. Now because we're on a roll, we have another 3 copies of a card, Pulsar Shield. I must say I'm pretty nonplussed about this. On the one hand, healing for 1 and getting an extra defense whilst readying myself for the next turn is a nice piece of action. But yeah, I'm gonna love swinging for 1 damage next turn. I suppose it redeems itself if you've got another change form card in your hand. But otherwise, I'm happy to say this is the worst of the Signature 15 so far. And no, the Retaliate one does not impress me enough. And because FFG obviously run out of ideas at this point, we have another 3 copies, this time at the speed of light. A nice little utility card if ever I saw one. But does replacing the card I just played to change forms sound like inspiration overload to you? Look, it's a fine enough card, I just hope to go out on a bit of a bang. And this is the more of, I get to draw a card and do a little dance. That card better be just what I need. That's it for the fun stuff then. What about our obligation, loss of control? Only one choice to deal with it, and I don't get a free flip to alter ego? Well, I never. This is a strange one, don't get me wrong, it's still not that debilitating. There's still a clear path to getting rid of it with the usual hit in the tempo, and I should be more excited that this breaks the obligation mould, but I can't think of one single thing more to say about it. And so to her Nemesis minion. The somewhat radioactive man is ally hate on a stick. So this goes one of 2 ways. If you're on your lonesome, it's a meh Nemesis. If you're choked full of table friends, do not let this guy live till the next villain phase. Now, you don't often see Nemesis minions as boost cards, but that would also absolutely suck if you drew this when you were out on the town with your buddies. Joining him is the Reactor Meltdown side scheme, which can again have a horrible downside, and the Crisis icon forces you to take that hit sooner rather than later. Now it all makes sense. Bless you, Photon Speed. You are my hero. Definitely pause for thought on this, either on your lonesome or in multiplayer, as to when you want to pull the trigger though on its disposal. 2 copies of Sap Power is there to provide a sting in your tail. Attaching to your identity and doing 1 damage at the end of every turn isn't something you can hide from forever. This feels like another kind of obligation to me. Again, if you draw on this late game, you can probably just ride it to the win. But any other time, you should ignore this at your peril. And finally, we have Radioactive Blast, that mirrors so many of those standard cards that have variable outcomes, dependent on what form you're in. Sometimes I feel like I should just read the card out loud and then play some elevator music for you whilst the ordinariness of the card you've just witnessed soaks in. As it is, I'm going to provide insight beyond measure and say there are worse cards to draw and there are better cards to draw. Nailed it. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is Spectrum. No honourable mentions for her. Just the realisation that I'm glad I playtested her before I did this review, because some of these cards just don't get the blood race in. That's not necessarily a reflection of her power level though, just a statement of fact. I can, however, proudly proclaim that she is a fun identity to play. Maybe because I love sequencing so much, and it'd be the easiest thing in the world to underestimate what her energy forms bring to the table and to her stat line. As it is, I see her being that above average category. Not quite S or A tier, but still boasting a healthy win rate. Alas, that is the end of this here tale. I have been the voice of Benji, and this is him telling you that this video has ended.